OnePlus Nord. It's a polarizing device. Some people have dubbed it as OnePlus coming back to their roots, while others have written it off in favor of more powerful devices like the Realme X2 Pro or the X3. So which one is it? And more importantly, should you spend your hard-earned money on getting one? Let's answer those questions in this review. Hey guys, Omar here from C4eTech, and if you do end up finding this review informative, then please consider subscribing and turning on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. Now we have done a lot of videos on the OnePlus Nord. You can watch our comparisons, speed tests and all that. In fact, I'll have a link to our OnePlus Nord playlist right here. But the main reason why we covered the Nord so extensively is because I wanted to figure out what exactly the OnePlus Nord was. Now looking at just the raw specs, I thought the Nord was just a cut down version of the flagship OnePlus 8. Makes sense, right? We have the 90Hz AMOLED screen, the primary camera is the same, and we also get Warp Charge 30T. So flagship grade everything except the processor. That's a Snapdragon 765G. Now, as speed tests and benchmarks will show you, this is a mid-range system on a chip. So not quite as fast as the Snapdragon 865s and 855 pluses. It does have 5G, so it is kind of future-proof, but there's no practical benefits for it in the present. So as it stands, we are dealing with a mid-range 7 series chip, and well, the numbers don't lie. Except, well, they kinda do here. I spent a good 2 weeks with the OnePlus Nord and didn't face a single stutter. Yes, if you're coming from a flagship device, you will feel that heavy apps, games like PUBG, take a split second longer to load. That's probably because OnePlus uses slower UFS 2.1 storage here. But once the loading process finishes, even heavier games play just fine. That being said, when switching over to games that support the higher 90Hz refresh rate, the Adreno 620 struggles to hit the 90 FPS mark consistently. Just a heads up for anyone who might be considering getting the Nord to enjoy high FPS gaming. Barring high refresh rate games, the rest of the device feels really smooth. Animations felt fluid and we faced no problem swiping through menus or browsing social media apps. Oxygen OS has been my favorite Android skin, and it really shines on the OnePlus Nord. I feel like this device wouldn't have felt as fast and snappy if we didn't have close to stock Android running on it. And then there are the little tweaks that Oxygen OS brings to the table, like theming, the alert slider, super fast face and fingerprint unlock. Silent features that work flawlessly, so I never ended up paying much attention to them, but end up missing whenever I switch away from a OnePlus device. I think OnePlus has nailed the user experience here. In my time with the Nord, never did I feel like I was making a compromise or even using a mid-range device instead of a flagship one. So imagine my surprise when I checked on Twitter and found someone complaining that the 12GB version of the OnePlus Nord had been facing some stutters. Honestly guys, my review unit, it's a 12 to 56GB version and I haven't faced any such lags or stutters, and the tinting issue for the display, haven't faced that either. In fact, this display has been one of the best part of my Nord experience. Perfect darks and punchy colors, just as you'd expect from an OLED panel. We even have HDR10 Plus as well as Widevine L1 support on board. In fact, I spent a lot of my downtime binge watching Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, and the 6.44-inch Full HD Plus screen never failed me. And I know how weird it feels calling an almost 6.5-inch device small, but the OnePlus Nord did feel refreshingly easy to handle. The buttons are nice and clicky, placed with an easy reach, and the weight is a mere 184 grams. OnePlus has still retained the glass sandwich construction, Corning's Gorilla Glass 5 to both sides, but holding it together is a plastic frame that's got a metallic paint job on it. The battery life too is quite impressive. At 4115 mAh, it is a shade under 5% smaller than the 4300 mAh battery on the OnePlus 8. But thanks to the smaller screen and lower powered processor, the battery life here is almost as good, if not slightly better than the OnePlus 8. For all intents and purposes, I felt like I was using a smaller OnePlus 8 with 2 punch holes to the left instead of 1. That's until I turned on the camera. Now, OnePlus says the primary camera on the Nord is the same as the one on the OnePlus 8. So what we are looking at here are the images taken from the optically stabilized Sony IMX586 sensor with an f1.75 lens. As expected, the pictures turned out excellent, We have great details, nice and vibrant colors, and impressive dynamic range. Side by side with the OnePlus 8, we have some difference in processing of course, so the Nord is warmer with brighter colors while the 8 has more true to life colors. But other than that, they are very similar. Even under low light, the OnePlus does quite well. Nightscape does a good job of retaining details in the snaps without making them too noisy. And then we have optical image stabilization, something that we rarely see in phones in this range, making this one of the best low light shooters in the under 30k price range. Moving on then to the other cameras. And oh boy, does the Nord have a lot of them. In fact, with a total of 6 cameras, the Nord has the most cameras ever on a OnePlus device. Even the OnePlus 8 Pro has only 5. Unfortunately though, the cameras on the Nord are more of a case of quantity over quality. The 8 megapixel ultra wide, 5 megapixel depth and 2 megapixel macro cameras make for an impressive read on a spec sheet. But in reality, I'd have preferred if maybe OnePlus had saved on the last 2 sensors and instead gotten a better ultra wide shooter in here. This 8 megapixel sensor does get the job done, but I would have loved to see one that would have taken sharper snaps. As for the selfies, we have a 32 megapixel Sony IMX616 sensor that's coupled with an 8 megapixel ultra wide shooter. OnePlus does quite well here. The 32 megapixel snapper takes some well detailed shots with good looking skin tones. The ultra wide snaps can look a bit soft in comparison, but then having that wide perspective is great for group selfies. Coming over to video capture, and here's where things get a little confusing for me. So the front camera, that's a 32 megapixel shooter, can take 4K 60 frames per second video, but the rear 48 megapixel is only restricted to 4K 30 and 4K 30 Cine. I don't really know the logic behind this one. It's not like a chip level limitation either. Anyway, the OnePlus Nord can capture some crispy looking 4K footage, OIS coming in handy, and we even have features like Super Stable. That's OnePlus's version of Super Steady Video, and it works really well. Overall, we have some impressive cameras on board the OnePlus Nord. The primary shooter is certainly up to 2020 standards, and the rest are good enough for the price point. Now, this is the second time that I have brought price into this equation, so I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about it. The OnePlus Nord consistently delivers a OnePlus 8 level experience while costing almost 15,000 rupee less. So in that way, I guess I can see how many people see this as OnePlus returning to their roots. I might not go as far as to say that the Nord is a OnePlus 8 killer, but it certainly does bring that flagship experience down to the mid-range. Yes, there are some notable exceptions like gaming and the quality of the secondary cameras, but then the first generation OnePlus devices also came with compromises of their own. So if you have always wanted to experience Oxygen OS and you love the alert slider, the pastel blue color, then the OnePlus Nord is a pretty good mid-ranger. But that's at the 25,000 rupee price point for the 664GB model. And unfortunately, that's an Amazon exclusive that would be available only in September. Looking at the Nord right now, we have the 8 128GB version that starts at 28,000 going up to 30,000 for the 12 256GB version. Sneaky pricing strategies aside, at that price point being a pseudo flagship is just not good enough, especially when we have choices like the Realme X2 Pro, the Realme X3 Super Zoom and even OnePlus's own OnePlus 7T breathing down its neck. In this fast moving world with phones launching every other week, I don't really see the point in asking you guys to wait one entire month just to buy the OnePlus Nord. And at its current price, the OnePlus Nord doesn't get my nod. So that's been my 2 cents. Now I want to know what you guys think about the OnePlus Nord, about OnePlus's pricing strategies, and heck, anything else OnePlus related. Leave it down in the comments below. And with that, we come to the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.